Maria Rodriguez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she adjusted her Barrett M82 rifle for the 100th time that morning. The Afghan sun beat down mercilessly on the rocky outcrop where she lay positioned, scanning the valley below through her scope. At 26 years old, she had already earned her place among the Navy SEALs, but respect from her fellow soldiers remained elusive. The radio crackled to life beside her. Viper 1, this is command. Rangers are requesting sniper support for their mission in Sector 7. You're the closest asset. Maria pressed the transmit button. Copy that, command. Moving to support Rangers in Sector 7. She packed her gear with practiced efficiency, securing the massive Barrett rifle to her back. The weapon weighed nearly 30 pounds, but Maria had grown accustomed to its bulk over her 3 years as a SEAL sniper. Her spotter, Sergeant Jake Morrison, emerged from behind a cluster of rocks where he had been monitoring radio communications. Rangers again? Jake asked, shouldering his own pack. This should be interesting. Maria knew what he meant. The Army Rangers had a reputation for being tough, elite soldiers, but they also had old-fashioned ideas about women in combat roles. Despite her proven track record and the Navy SEAL trident on her uniform, many Rangers still viewed her with skepticism and barely concealed mockery. The trek to Sector 7 took 2 hours across treacherous mountain terrain. Maria moved with the fluid grace of someone who had spent countless hours training in similar conditions. Her boots found purchase on loose rocks where others might slip, and her breathing remained steady despite the thin mountain air. When they reached the Rangers' position, Maria immediately sensed the tension in the air. The Rangers had been pinned down by enemy fire from a distant ridgeline for over 4 hours. Their commanding officer, Captain James Mitchell, looked up as Maria and Jake approached the makeshift command post. Well, Mitchell said, his voice carrying a hint of disdain. They sent us the lady sniper. I hope you brought your makeup kit along with that fancy rifle. Several Rangers chuckled at their captain's comment. Maria had heard worse, much worse, during her military career. She kept her expression neutral and professional. Where do you need the targets eliminated, Captain? Maria asked, ignoring the jibe. Mitchell pointed toward the distant mountains. Enemy sniper has us pinned down from that ridgeline. We've lost 2 men trying to advance. Think you can handle a real combat situation, sweetheart? Jake stepped forward, his jaw clenched. Sir, Petty Officer Rodriguez has 43 confirmed kills in combat operations. She's the real deal. 43? Laughed Sergeant First Class Danny Torres, one of the Rangers. My grandmother could probably hit that many targets at a shooting range. This ain't target practice, Princess. Maria studied the terrain through her binoculars. The enemy position was extremely distant, easily over 3,000 meters away. The wind was gusting unpredictably, and heat shimmer from the sun-baked rocks would make target acquisition challenging. Even for an experienced sniper, it would be a difficult shot. I can see muzzle flashes from their position, Maria observed calmly. Single shooter, probably using an SVD Dragunov based on the sound signature. He's got excellent cover and concealment. Captain Mitchell crossed his arms. So what's your plan, hotshot? Gonna paint your nails while we wait for real support? The mockery continued as Maria set up her shooting position. She carefully arranged her bipod on a stable rock formation, adjusting the legs until her rifle was perfectly level. The Barrett M82 was a formidable weapon, capable of reaching targets at extreme distances, but it required skill and patience to use effectively. Range to target? Maria asked Jake, who was already working with his laser rangefinder. 3,180 meters, Jake reported. Wind is variable, gusting from the southwest at 15 to 20 knots. Several Rangers gathered around to watch, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright skepticism. Maria had performed under scrutiny before, but never with such obvious hostility from the soldiers she was trying to help. Maybe we should call for air support instead, suggested one Ranger. Save us all some time. Air support is unavailable for another 6 hours, Captain Mitchell replied. Guess we're stuck with G.I. Jane here. Maria began her calculations, factoring in distance, wind speed, air density, and the Coriolis effect. The mathematics of long-range shooting were complex, requiring precise adjustments to scope settings and aim point. She made several small adjustments to her scope, turning the turrets with deliberate precision. Through her scope, she could barely make out the enemy position. The target was using a natural depression in the rocks for cover, only exposing himself for brief moments when taking shots at the Rangers below. Maria would have to time her shot perfectly, anticipating when the enemy sniper would appear. "This is taking forever," complained Torres. "A real sniper would have taken the shot by now." "Maybe she needs someone to hold her hand," added another ranger, prompting more laughter. Maria blocked out the noise and focused on her breathing. She had learned early in her sniper training that emotional control was just as important as marksmanship skills. The ranger's taunts were nothing compared to the pressure she had faced during her initial SEAL training, where instructors had done everything possible to break her will. Jake positioned himself beside Maria with his spotting scope. "I've got eyes on the target area. He's been popping up every 90 seconds or so, always in the same location." "Copy that," Maria whispered, settling into her firing position. "I'll take the shot on his next appearance." The Rangers grew quiet despite their skepticism. They recognized that something serious was about to happen. Maria's finger rested lightly on the trigger as she waited for the perfect moment. Her breathing slowed and her heart rate dropped as she entered the focused state that all elite snipers knew. In the distance, barely visible through the heat shimmer and mountain haze, the enemy sniper prepared to take another shot at the Rangers below. He had no idea that death was watching him through a high-powered scope from over 3 kilometers away. Maria's world narrowed to the small circle visible through her scope. The enemy sniper's position appeared as little more than a dark shadow against the rocky mountainside. At 180 meters, the target was barely a speck, even through her high-powered optics. She had made longer shots before, but never under such hostile scrutiny from fellow American soldiers. "Movement," Jake whispered beside her. "Target is shifting position." Through her scope, Maria could see the subtle changes in shadow and light that indicated human movement. The enemy sniper was preparing for another shot. She estimated he would expose himself within the next 30 seconds, giving her a brief window of opportunity. Behind her, the Rangers continued their commentary. "She's been sitting there for 10 minutes, complained one soldier. "A good sniper makes quick decisions." Captain Mitchell checked his watch. "Maybe we should just call it off." "This is embarrassing." Maria tuned out their voices and focused on her breathing pattern. In through the nose, hold for 2 seconds, out through the mouth. Her heart rate slowed to a steady rhythm that wouldn't interfere with her shot placement. The Barrett rifle felt like an extension of her body, its weight distributed perfectly across the bipod and her shoulder. Jake made a final wind reading using his portable weather station. "Wind has steadied out at 18 knots from the southwest. Temperature is 112 degrees Fahrenheit. The extreme heat created additional challenges. Hot air was less dense than cool air, which would affect the bullet's trajectory." Maria made a tiny adjustment to her scope elevation, compensating for the decreased air density. Every variable had to be perfect for a shot at this distance. "There," Jake said quietly. "Target is moving into position." Maria could see it too. The enemy sniper was settling into his firing position, completely unaware that he was being watched. Through her scope, she could make out the outline of his rifle and the vague shape of his head and shoulders. At this distance, even the slightest movement of her rifle would cause the shot to miss by several feet. She controlled her breathing, taking in half a breath and holding it. Her finger found the trigger, applying just enough pressure to take up the slack. The Barrett's trigger was set to break at exactly 4 pounds of pressure. Too much pressure applied too quickly would jerk the rifle off target. "Wind holding steady," Jake reported in the softest whisper possible. The Rangers had grown quiet, sensing that the moment of truth was approaching. Even the most skeptical among them understood that they were about to witness something extraordinary, one way or another. Captain Mitchell crouched down behind a rock, watching through his own binoculars. Maria made one final calculation in her head. At 3,180 meters, her .50 caliber bullet would take approximately 4 seconds to reach the target. During that time, gravity would pull the projectile down nearly 40 feet from its initial trajectory. The wind would push it sideways by several more feet. She had to aim at a point in space where she estimated the target would be when the bullet arrived. Through her scope, she watched the enemy sniper's pattern. He was taking aimed shots at the Ranger's position every 90 seconds, just as Jake had observed. The man was disciplined and methodical, qualities that Maria could respect even though he was trying to kill American soldiers. "Steady wind, steady temperature," Jake whispered. "Green light for the shot." Maria's crosshairs settled on a point approximately 6 feet above and 3 feet to the left of where she could see the enemy sniper's position. To anyone watching, it would appear that she was aiming at empty air, but she knew that if her calculations were correct, Her bullet and the target would occupy the same space in exactly 4 seconds. The enemy sniper raised his rifle, preparing to fire at the Rangers below. Maria could see him settling into his shooting position, completely focused on his own target. He had no idea that death was racing toward him at nearly 3,000 feet per second. Maria applied the final pressure to her trigger. The Barrett rifle bucked against her shoulder with tremendous force, sending a .50 caliber bullet screaming across the Afghan mountains. The sound of the shot echoed off the rocky peaks like thunder, followed immediately by the metallic ringing of the Barrett's muzzle brake. "Shot fired," Jake called out, starting his stopwatch. Time of flight 4.2 seconds. The Rangers watched in stunned silence as Maria maintained her shooting position, keeping her scope trained on the target area. She wouldn't know if her shot was successful until Jake could confirm the hit through his spotting scope. "Did she miss?" asked Torres, trying to peer through his binoculars at the distant mountainside. Maria kept her rifle steady, waiting for Jake's assessment. Through her scope, she could no longer see any movement from the enemy position. The shadow that had represented the sniper was gone, but at this distance, it was impossible to know if that meant success or simply that the target had moved to better cover. Jake remained focused on his spotting scope, searching for any sign of impact. At extreme distances, it could take several seconds for dust and debris to become visible after a bullet strike. The .50 caliber round packed enormous energy, capable of devastating effects on both personnel and equipment. "Come on," muttered Captain Mitchell. Did she hit him or not? The seconds stretched out endlessly. Maria's shot had been perfect as far as she could tell. Her rifle had been steady, her calculations precise, and her trigger control flawless. But at distances approaching 200 meters, even tiny errors could result in complete misses. "Wait," Jake said suddenly. "I'm seeing dust and debris at the target location. Significant impact signature." Through his high-powered spotting scope, Jake could see the aftermath of Maria's shot more clearly than anyone else. The enemy sniper's position showed clear signs of a high-velocity impact. Rocks had been shattered, and dust was still settling from the massive kinetic energy of the .50 caliber bullet. The Rangers strained to see through their own optics, but the distance made confirmation nearly impossible for anyone except Jake with his specialized equipment. They would have to trust his assessment of the shot's effectiveness. "Is he down?" Captain Mitchell demanded. "Can you confirm the kill?" Jake continued his observation, scanning the entire target area for any sign of movement or return fire. In sniper operations, confirming a kill required more than just seeing an impact. The target had to be completely neutralized, unable to continue fighting. Jake maintained his position behind the spotting scope, his eye pressed against the eyepiece as he scanned the distant mountainside. The dust cloud from Maria's shot was beginning to settle, revealing the devastation caused by the .50 caliber round. Even at over 3,000 meters, the massive bullet had retained enough energy to shatter rocks and completely destroy anything in its path. "Target down," Jake announced with quiet confidence. No movement detected. "The position has been neutralized." The Rangers remained skeptical. Sergeant Torres raised his binoculars again, squinting toward the distant ridgeline. "How can you be sure from this distance?" "Maybe he just moved to better cover." Jake never moved from his spotting scope. "I can see equipment debris scattered around the impact area. Part of his rifle is visible, damaged beyond use. There's been no return fire for over 2 minutes. Target is confirmed down." Maria finally lifted her head from her rifle scope, her face showing no emotion despite having just made one of the longest confirmed kills in military history. She began the methodical process of recording the shot in her logbook, noting wind conditions, temperature, range, and ammunition type. Every detail mattered for future reference and official records. Captain Mitchell lowered his binoculars, his expression unreadable. The mockery and jokes had stopped completely. Even the most hardened Rangers understood they had witnessed something extraordinary. A shot at 380 meters was beyond the capability of most snipers, regardless of gender. "Well, I'll be damned," muttered one of the younger Rangers. "She actually made the shot." "Lucky shot," Torres said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Even a broken clock is right twice a day." Maria began breaking down her shooting position, carefully cleaning her rifle and securing her equipment. She moved with the same calm professionalism she had shown throughout the entire engagement. The successful shot was just another day at the office for a Navy SEAL sniper. Jake packed his spotting equipment and laser rangefinder. "That's the longest confirmed kill I've ever spotted for," he told Maria quietly. Textbook perfect shot placement and timing. The Ranger's radio operator suddenly became animated, pressing his headset closer to his ear. "Captain, we're getting reports from command. Drone surveillance confirms the target elimination. Enemy sniper is definitely down." This external confirmation silenced any remaining doubts about Maria's shot. Military drones equipped with high-resolution cameras had been monitoring the area, providing independent verification of the kill. There could be no argument about the effectiveness of her marksmanship. Captain Mitchell approached Maria as she finished packing her gear. His earlier hostility had been replaced by grudging respect, though he clearly struggled with acknowledging her success. "That was adequate shooting, Rodriguez. We appreciate the support." "Just doing my job, Captain," Maria replied evenly. She had learned long ago not to gloat over her achievements or respond to backhanded compliments. Her record spoke for itself. The Rangers began preparing to advance from their positions, no longer pinned down by enemy fire. The successful elimination of the sniper had opened up their tactical options, allowing them to continue their mission without the constant threat of precision fire from the ridgeline. As the Rangers moved out, Maria and Jake received new orders over their radio. Command wanted them to relocate to a different sector, where intel suggested another high-value target might be operating. The war in Afghanistan was far from over, and skilled snipers were always in demand. "Think they'll remember this?" Jake asked as they watched the Rangers disappear into the rocky terrain below. Maria shouldered her Barrett rifle and began the long trek to their next position. "Probably not. Tomorrow they'll find some other reason to doubt what we can do." But Jake was wrong about the Rangers forgetting. Word of Maria's incredible shot began spreading through military channels within hours. A 3,180-meter kill with a Barrett M82 in combat conditions was the kind of achievement that became legend among soldiers. The fact that it had been accomplished by a female Navy SEAL made it even more remarkable. Sergeant Torres found himself telling the story to other soldiers at the forward operating base that evening. Despite his initial skepticism, he couldn't deny what he had witnessed. "I'm telling you, this woman made a shot that would challenge the best snipers in the world. Clean kill at over 3,000 meters. Captain Mitchell filed his after-action report with unusual attention to detail, making sure to note Maria's exceptional marksmanship and professional conduct. His personal opinions about women in combat roles remained unchanged, but he couldn't ignore superior performance when he saw it. Meanwhile, Maria and Jake had reached their new position and were setting up for another long-range surveillance mission. The mountains of Afghanistan were filled with enemy fighters, and American forces needed every advantage they could get. Maria's Barrett rifle would continue to reach out and touch targets that other weapons couldn't engage. "Contact," Jake whispered, spotting movement through his scope. "Possible high-value target at 2,800 meters. Maria settled into her shooting position once again, her rifle finding its natural point of aim almost automatically. The successful shot against the Ranger sniper had been validation of her skills, but it was already history. The next target required the same level of precision and professionalism. The enemy fighter Jake had spotted was moving along a distant ridgeline, apparently unaware that he was being observed by American forces. Intelligence reports suggested he might be a Taliban commander, responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces in the region. "Wind is calm, temperature dropping as the sun goes down," Jake reported. "Range 2,847 meters. Target is moving slowly from left to right." Maria adjusted her scope settings for the new range and environmental conditions. Each shot required fresh calculations and precise adjustments. There was no such thing as a routine long-range engagement, even for someone with her experience and skill level. Through her scope, she could see the figure moving along the rocky path. He was taking his time, apparently confident that he was safe from coalition forces. The arrogance of enemy fighters often worked in favor of American snipers, who could engage from distances that most people considered impossible. "Target appears to be armed with an AK-47, Jake observed. Possible radio equipment visible on his belt. The intelligence value of eliminating enemy commanders was enormous. These individuals coordinated attacks, managed supply lines, and provided leadership for smaller fighting units. Taking them out could disrupt enemy operations for weeks or months." News of Maria's exceptional shot spread through the military community faster than wildfire. Within 48 hours, Soldiers across multiple bases in Afghanistan were discussing the female Navy SEAL who had made a confirmed kill at 3,180 meters. The story grew with each telling, though the core facts remained unchanged and verifiable through official channels. At Bagram Airfield, the largest American base in Afghanistan, Marines gathered around tables in the dining facility to debate whether such a shot was even possible. "No way," insisted Corporal Mike Davidson, a Marine sniper with 2 combat deployments. "The ballistics don't work at that range. Too many variables." "Drone footage confirmed it," replied Staff Sergeant Lisa Chen, who had access to classified reports. "Command verified the kill through multiple sources. This woman is the real deal." The debate wasn't limited to enlisted personnel. Officers throughout the theater of operations found themselves discussing Maria's achievement during briefings and planning sessions. Colonel Robert Hayes, commanding officer of a Special Operations Task Force, pulled up the official report on his computer screen. "Look at these numbers," he said to his intelligence officer. 3,180 meters in variable wind conditions with a Barrett M82. That's world-class marksmanship under combat stress. The intelligence officer, Major Sarah Williams, had reviewed the entire incident file. "Sir, this is her 44th confirmed kill." Her record shows consistent accuracy at extreme ranges. The Rangers she supported have filed supplementary reports praising her professionalism. This last point was particularly significant. The same Rangers who had mocked Maria before her shot were now singing her praises in official military documents. Captain Mitchell's after-action report specifically mentioned her exceptional marksmanship and calm demeanor under pressure. Back in the field, Maria continued her missions without fanfare or acknowledgement of her growing reputation. She and Jake had been assigned to a new sector, where intelligence suggested a Taliban weapons cache was hidden. Their job was to observe and report enemy activity, while providing sniper support for a planned raid. "You know half the military is talking about your shot, right?" Jake mentioned as they climbed toward their new observation post. Maria adjusted her pack straps and kept climbing. "Doesn't change anything. Same job, same standards, same expectations." Jake understood her perspective, but he also recognized the significance of what had happened. In a male-dominated military culture, Maria had achieved something that commanded universal respect. Her gender had become irrelevant in the face of undeniable skill and professionalism. Their new position overlooked a valley where suspected Taliban forces had been moving supplies and personnel. Intelligence reports suggested the area contained weapon stockpiles and served as a staging area for attacks against coalition forces. Maria and Jake would spend the next 72 hours gathering information and engaging targets of opportunity. The first night passed quietly, with minimal enemy movement detected through their night vision equipment. Maria used the time to clean and maintain her rifle, checking every component for wear or damage. The Barrett M82 was a robust weapon, but extreme accuracy required meticulous care and attention to detail. On the second day, their patience was rewarded. Jake spotted a convoy of vehicles moving along a distant road, apparently heading toward the suspected weapons cache. Through his spotting scope, he could see armed fighters in the truck beds and what appeared to be supply containers covered with tarps. Multiple vehicles. "Range approximately 2,400 meters, Jake reported quietly. "Looks like a resupply operation." Maria studied the convoy through her rifle scope. The vehicles were moving slowly along the winding mountain road, vulnerable to long-range fire. However, rules of engagement required positive identification of hostile intent before engaging civilian-looking vehicles, even in a combat zone. "I can see weapons mounted in the truck beds," Maria observed. "Definitely military-age males with AK-47s. One vehicle has what looks like a heavy machine gun." Jake was already on the radio, reporting their observations to command. "Stronghold 6, this is Viper 1. We have eyes on a suspected enemy convoy in Sector 9. Request permission to engage." The response came back within minutes. "Viper 1, you are cleared to engage targets of opportunity, minimize civilian casualties, and avoid damaging the roadway." Maria had already calculated the range and environmental factors. The morning air was cool and stable, providing excellent conditions for long-range shooting. Wind was minimal and visibility was crystal clear in the thin mountain atmosphere. "Lead vehicle has stopped," Jake reported. "They appear to be dismounting personnel." Through her scope, Maria could see armed fighters exiting the vehicles and taking defensive positions along the roadside. Their behavior indicated military training and discipline. These weren't civilian drivers caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. "Count 12 enemy personnel visible," Maria said calmly. 2 crew-served weapons identified. The enemy fighters were setting up what appeared to be a checkpoint or observation post. Their position gave them excellent visibility over the surrounding valley, making them a significant threat to future coalition operations in the area. Maria selected her first target, a fighter who appeared to be directing the activities of others. Leadership targets were always priority in sniper operations. Eliminating commanders and specialists could disrupt enemy operations more effectively than targeting random soldiers. "Wind is dead calm. Temperature 78 degrees, Jake provided. "Range to primary target 390 meters. Maria made her scope adjustments with practiced precision. At this range, bullet drop would be significant but manageable for the powerful .50 caliber round. Environmental conditions were nearly perfect for long-range shooting. The enemy commander stood beside one of the vehicles, gesturing toward different positions where he wanted his men deployed. He was completely unaware that he was being observed through a high-powered scope from over a mile away. His confidence and casual demeanor suggested he felt safe from coalition forces. Maria controlled her breathing and settled into her shooting position. The successful shot against the Ranger's sniper had boosted her confidence, but each engagement required the same level of concentration and preparation. There was no room for complacency in sniper operations. "Target is stationary," Jake whispered. "Clear shot available." Maria's finger found the trigger as she made final adjustments to her aim point. At 390 meters, her bullet would take approximately 3 seconds to reach the target. She had to account for the target's potential movement during that time frame. The Barrett rifle had become an extension of her body through countless hours of training and combat experience. She knew exactly how it would recoil, how the trigger would break, and where the bullet would impact if her calculations were correct. Maria's reputation within the special operations community had reached the highest levels of military command. General Patricia Morrison, the first female 4-star general in combat operations, requested a briefing about the Navy SEAL sniper who was making headlines throughout Afghanistan. The general's aide pulled up Maria's complete service record on a secure computer terminal. "Petty Officer First Class Maria Rodriguez," the aide read aloud. 3 years as a Navy SEAL sniper, 44 confirmed kills, average engagement range 1,147 meters. Recently achieved the longest confirmed sniper kill by any female service member at 3,180 meters. General Morrison studied the statistics with professional interest. "What's her background before the military?" "Civilian marksmanship champion in high school and college. She competed in Olympic trials for rifle shooting before enlisting. Both parents were law enforcement officers in Texas. No disciplinary actions on her record, consistently high performance evaluations." The general made notes on her tablet. "I want to meet this soldier. Arrange for her to be brought to Bagram for a debriefing. We need to understand how she's achieving these results so we can improve training for other snipers." Meanwhile, in their mountain observation post, Maria had no idea she was being discussed at the highest levels of military command. She and Jake continued their surveillance mission, having successfully eliminated 3 enemy fighters from the convoy they had observed 2 days earlier. Their position remained undetected, allowing them to gather valuable intelligence about enemy movement patterns. "Movement in the valley," Jake reported, scanning through his spotting scope. "Looks like another group heading toward the weapons cache." Maria shifted her position to get a better view through her rifle scope. She could see approximately 8 individuals moving on foot along a well-worn trail. They carried packs and weapons, suggesting another resupply mission for the Taliban forces operating in the region. "Range 2,650 meters, Jake calculated using his laser rangefinder. "They're moving single file along the ridge trail." Maria studied the group through her scope, looking for high-value targets or immediate threats to coalition forces. The lead figure appeared older than the others and carried himself with the confidence of an experienced commander. His equipment looked more sophisticated than typical Taliban fighters. Their radio crackled with an urgent message from command. "Viper 1, be advised that high-value target Khalid Hassan may be in your area of operations. Positive identification and elimination authorized upon confirmation." Jake quickly consulted his target identification cards, comparing photographs with the figures visible through his spotting scope. Khalid Hassan was a Taliban commander responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces throughout the region. His elimination would significantly disrupt enemy operations. "I think I've got a match," Jake whispered excitedly. Lead figure matches the height and build description for Hassan. Distinctive beard pattern and clothing style match intelligence photos. Maria focused her scope on the suspected high-value target. At 2,050 meters, positive identification was challenging, but several details seemed to match the intelligence reports. The man's age, physical characteristics, and leadership behavior all suggested he might be the Taliban commander they were looking for. "Confidence level?" Maria asked quietly. Jake studied the target through his high-powered spotting scope, comparing every visible detail with the classified photographs. 85% confident. Body language, equipment, and physical characteristics all match Hassan's profile. Maria weighed the decision carefully. Rules of engagement allowed her to engage based on reasonable certainty, but misidentification could result in civilian casualties or the loss of valuable intelligence opportunities. The suspected target was still moving, making accurate shooting more challenging. "Wind is picking up slightly," Jake reported. 8 knots from the west. Temperature 96 degrees and climbing. The afternoon heat was creating thermal currents that could affect bullet trajectory at extreme ranges. Maria made mental calculations for the changing environmental conditions, adjusting her scope settings accordingly. Every variable had to be considered for a successful engagement at this distance. The suspected Taliban commander stopped walking and turned to address his followers. This provided Maria with a stationary target and a better view of his facial features. Through her scope, she could see enough detail to increase her confidence in the identification. "Target is stationary," Jake confirmed. "Clear line of sight to suspected Hassan." Maria controlled her breathing and settled into her final shooting position. If this was indeed Khalid Hassan, his elimination would save coalition lives and disrupt Taliban operations throughout the region. The intelligence value alone justified the shot. Her crosshairs settled on the target's center mass. At 2,650 meters, a headshot would be too risky, given the range and environmental conditions. A center mass hit with a .50 caliber round would be instantly fatal regardless of exact placement. "Shot when ready," Jake whispered, maintaining observation through his spotting scope. Maria applied gradual pressure to her trigger, feeling the Barrett's mechanism engage. The suspected Taliban commander stood motionless, apparently discussing something with his subordinates. He had no idea that death was observing him through a high-powered scope from over a mile away. The rifle fired with its characteristic thunder, sending another .50 caliber round screaming across the Afghan mountains. Maria maintained her shooting position, watching through her scope as the massive bullet covered the distance to its target. At 2,650 meters, time of flight would be approximately 3.2 seconds. "Shot fired," Jake announced, starting his stopwatch. "Time of flight 3.2 seconds. The group of Taliban fighters had heard the distant sound of Maria's rifle, but at extreme range, the origin of the shot was impossible to determine. They looked around nervously, not yet realizing that one of their members had been targeted. Through her scope, Maria watched as her bullet found its mark. The suspected Taliban commander dropped instantly, the massive kinetic energy of the .50 caliber round causing devastating trauma. His followers scattered in panic, abandoning their mission and seeking cover among the rocks. "Target down," Jake confirmed through his spotting scope. "No movement detected. Secondary targets are fleeing the area." Maria began the process of documenting another successful engagement in her logbook. If Jake's identification was correct, she had just eliminated one of the most wanted Taliban commanders in the region. The intelligence value of this single shot could be enormous. Their radio came alive with excited chatter from command. Drone surveillance had been monitoring the area and confirmed the elimination of the target. More importantly, signal intelligence had intercepted Taliban communications indicating that Khalid Hassan had been killed by coalition forces. "Viper 1, excellent work," came the message from command. "Target confirmed as Khalid Hassan. You have eliminated a high-value target responsible for numerous attacks against coalition forces." Jake grinned at Maria as he packed his spotting equipment. "That's 45 confirmed kills, including one of the most wanted Taliban commanders in Afghanistan. Not bad for a day's work." The elimination of Khalid Hassan sent shockwaves through Taliban leadership across Afghanistan. Intelligence intercepts revealed panic and confusion among enemy commanders, who had considered Hassan untouchable. His death demonstrated that coalition forces could reach anyone, anywhere, regardless of how safe they felt in remote mountain hideouts. At the Pentagon, Maria's achievement was being discussed in the highest circles of military leadership. Defense Secretary James Crawford reviewed her complete file during a briefing about special operations effectiveness in Afghanistan. The numbers were impressive by any standard, but coming from a female sniper made them even more remarkable. 45 confirmed kills, including 3 high-value targets, Crawford noted, reading from the classified report. Average engagement range over 800 meters. This soldier is redefining what we thought was possible in long-range precision shooting. General Morrison, who had requested the earlier briefing about Maria, provided additional context. Sir, her longest confirmed kill at 3,180 meters exceeded the previous female record by over 800 meters. She's operating at a level comparable to the most elite male snipers in our military. The Defense Secretary made notes on his tablet. I want her story documented properly. This kind of performance needs to be studied and replicated throughout our sniper training programs. What's her current assignment status? She's scheduled to be extracted from her current position for debriefing at Bagram, General Morrison replied. Command wants to interview her about techniques and training methods that could benefit other snipers. Back in Afghanistan, Maria and Jake received orders to conclude their mission and return to base. A helicopter extraction was scheduled for the following morning, bringing an end to their most successful deployment yet. As they prepared their equipment for transport, both soldiers reflected on what they had accomplished. You know this changes everything, right? Jake said as he disassembled his spotting scope. After Hassan's elimination, every Taliban commander in the country knows about the female SEAL sniper. You've become a legend. Maria focused on cleaning her Barrett rifle, paying special attention to the barrel and trigger mechanism. Legends don't stay alive very long in this business. I'm just doing my job, same as always. But Jake was right about the impact of Maria's achievements. Throughout Afghanistan, Taliban fighters spoke in hushed tones about the ghost woman who could kill from impossible distances. Her reputation had grown beyond military circles and was now affecting enemy morale and tactics. The helicopter extraction went smoothly, with Maria and Jake arriving at Bagram Airfield to find themselves minor celebrities among the base personnel. Word of Hassan's elimination had spread quickly, and soldiers from various units wanted to meet the sniper responsible for removing one of their most dangerous enemies. Captain Mitchell and several of his rangers were at the airfield when Maria's helicopter landed. The same soldiers who had mocked her just a week earlier now approached with obvious respect and admiration. Torres, who had been most vocal in his skepticism, stepped forward first. Rodriguez, he said, extending his hand. I owe you an apology. What you did out there was incredible. Best shooting I've ever seen. Maria shook his hand professionally. We all have the same mission, Sergeant. Glad I could help you and your men complete yours safely. Captain Mitchell nodded his agreement. My after-action report specifically mentions your exceptional performance. Command has been asking questions about your capabilities. I told them you're the best sniper I've worked with, period. The formal debriefing took place in a secure conference room with representatives from multiple military branches and intelligence agencies. Maria answered detailed questions about her shooting techniques, equipment preferences, and tactical decision-making processes. Every aspect of her methods was analyzed for potential training improvements. Colonel Hayes, the Special Operations Task Force commander, led the questioning. Petty Officer Rodriguez, your average engagement range exceeds that of most male snipers with similar experience. What factors do you believe contribute to your success? Maria considered the question carefully. Sir, I focus on fundamentals rather than trying to push maximum range. Proper breathing, trigger control, and environmental analysis are more important than exotic equipment or advanced calculations. I also spend extensive time in physical conditioning to maintain stability during long missions. The intelligence officer, Major Williams, was particularly interested in Maria's target identification and decision-making processes. How do you maintain accuracy when engaging high-value targets under time pressure? Ma'am, I treat every shot the same way, whether it's a standard fighter or a high-value target, Maria replied. Consistency in technique and preparation prevents mistakes when stakes are highest. Emotional control is just as important as marksmanship fundamentals. The debriefing continued for several hours, covering everything from equipment modifications to psychological preparation techniques. Military trainers took detailed notes, planning to incorporate Maria's methods into advanced sniper curricula at bases throughout the country. During a break in the formal questioning, General Morrison entered the conference room. Everyone stood at attention as the four-star general approached Maria directly. "Petty Officer Rodriguez," the general said, "I've been following your achievements with great interest. Your performance is exceptional by any standard, and particularly significant for female service members throughout our military." "Thank you, ma'am," Maria replied. "I hope my service demonstrates that capabilities matter more than demographics." General Morrison smiled. "Indeed it does. I have a proposition for you. We're developing an advanced sniper training program that would benefit from your expertise. Would you be interested in a stateside assignment helping to train the next generation of precision shooters?" The offer was tempting. A training assignment would be safer than combat operations and would allow Maria to share her knowledge with other soldiers. However, it would also mean leaving active combat operations at a time when her skills were most needed. "Ma'am, I appreciate the offer, but I'd prefer to continue operational assignments if possible. There's still work to do here, and I believe I can contribute more in the field than in a classroom." The general nodded approvingly. "I respect that decision, but the offer remains open. Your country needs soldiers who can perform at your level, and eventually we'll need you to help create more of them." As the debriefing concluded, Maria learned that her story was being prepared for wider distribution within military circles. Her achievements would be used to counter arguments against women in combat roles and to inspire other female service members considering special operations careers. The irony wasn't lost on her. The same Rangers who had initially mocked her capabilities were now using her success to support their own after-action reports. Military culture was slowly changing, one exceptional performance at a time. 6 months after her record-breaking shot, Maria found herself back in the mountains of Afghanistan on what would be her final deployment. The military landscape had changed significantly since her encounter with the skeptical Rangers. Word of her achievements had spread throughout coalition forces, and she now received requests for sniper support from units across the theater of operations. The Barrett M82 rifle that had become her trademark weapon showed signs of extensive use. The barrel had been replaced twice, and every component had been meticulously maintained to ensure continued accuracy. Maria had fired over 200 rounds in combat, with a hit rate that exceeded 90% at ranges beyond 1,500 meters. Jake remained her spotter, their partnership having evolved into one of the most effective sniper teams in Afghanistan. Together, they had eliminated 52 enemy fighters, including 7 high-value targets whose deaths had significantly disrupted Taliban operations throughout the region. "Final mission briefing," Jake said, reviewing their orders on a tablet computer. "Intelligence has located the training camp where they're teaching Taliban fighters to counter sniper operations. Apparently, your reputation has forced them to develop new tactics." Maria checked her equipment one final time. The mission would take them deeper into enemy territory than they had ever operated before. The Taliban training camp was located in a remote valley, surrounded by mountains that provided excellent sniper positions, but also made extraction extremely difficult. "Range to target area?" Maria asked, studying topographical maps of their destination. "Primary overwatch position is approximately 2,800 meters from the suspected training facility," Jake replied. "We'll have good concealment and multiple escape routes if things go wrong." The helicopter insertion took place before dawn, with Maria and Jake being dropped several kilometers from their intended position. They would approach the target area on foot, using darkness and difficult terrain to avoid detection by enemy patrols that intelligence suggested were operating in the region. As they climbed toward their observation post, Maria reflected on how her military career had exceeded every expectation she had held when first enlisting. The young woman who had endured mockery and skepticism had become one of the most respected snipers in the entire military. Her achievements had opened doors for other female soldiers and changed perceptions throughout the special operations community. The training camp came into view as the sun rose over the eastern mountains. Through her rifle scope, Maria could see Taliban fighters practicing movement techniques designed to counter sniper fire. They were learning to use terrain, concealment, and rapid movement to avoid becoming easy targets for long-range shooters. Ironic, Jake observed through his spotting scope. They're training specifically to counter tactics you've used against them. Maria watched the training exercise with professional interest. The Taliban fighters were disciplined and well-organized, suggesting they were receiving instruction from experienced commanders. Their techniques showed adaptation to the threat posed by coalition snipers operating at extreme ranges. Count approximately 30 fighters visible in the training area, Maria reported, multiple instructors identifiable by their position and equipment. Jake was already on the radio, requesting permission to engage targets of opportunity. Command responded quickly, authorizing immediate action against the training facility. Disrupting enemy counter-sniper training was considered a high priority for coalition forces. Maria selected her first target, an instructor who appeared to be demonstrating evasive movement techniques to a group of fighters. At 2,847 meters, the shot would be challenging but well within her demonstrated capabilities. Environmental conditions were nearly perfect, with minimal wind and excellent visibility. Wind dead calm, temperature 74 degrees, Jake provided. Range to primary target 2,847 meters. Target is stationary. Maria made her scope adjustments with practiced precision. The successful elimination of this instructor would disrupt the training session and demonstrate that even counter-sniper tactics couldn't protect Taliban fighters from her exceptional marksmanship. The Barrett rifle had become like a musical instrument in her hands. Every adjustment and control movement performed with unconscious competence. Her breathing slowed as she entered the focused state that had made her famous throughout the military. Through her scope, she could see the Taliban instructor gesturing toward different terrain features, apparently explaining how fighters could use natural cover to avoid sniper detection. His students listened intently, unaware that they were being observed through a high-powered scope from nearly 3 kilometers away. Maria's finger found the trigger as she made final calculations for the shot. At 2,847 meters, bullet drop would be substantial, but the powerful .50 caliber round retained enough energy to ensure immediate incapacitation upon impact. The shot broke cleanly, sending another massive bullet screaming across the Afghan mountains. Through her scope, Maria watched as the instructor dropped instantly, the devastating impact of the .50 caliber round ending his lesson permanently. His students scattered in panic, abandoning their training and seeking cover among the rocks. Target down, Jake confirmed. Training session effectively terminated. Maria had already shifted her aim to a second instructor, who was trying to organize the panicked fighters. At extreme range, rapid follow-up shots were extremely difficult, but her exceptional skill made the impossible seem routine. The second shot followed 30 seconds later, eliminating another instructor and causing complete chaos in the training camp. Taliban fighters ran in all directions, their counter-sniper training forgotten in the face of actual precision fire from an invisible enemy. 2 targets down. Remaining fighters are fleeing the area, Jake reported to command. Training facility has been effectively neutralized. As Maria and Jake prepared to withdraw from their position, they received word that this would be their final combat mission together. Both soldiers were being rotated back to the United States. Maria for the training assignment she had previously declined, and Jake for advanced instructor certification. End of an era, Jake said as they packed their equipment. 47 confirmed kills for you, including some of the longest shots in military history. Not bad for someone the Rangers thought couldn't handle combat. Maria shouldered her Barrett rifle for the last time in Afghanistan. The weapon had served her well, enabling achievements that had redefined expectations for female soldiers in combat roles. Her legacy would extend far beyond personal accomplishments to influence military policy and inspire future generations. The helicopter extraction proceeded without incident, carrying them away from the mountains where Maria had proven herself among the elite snipers in military history. Behind them, Taliban forces continued to flee from a training camp that had been devastated by precision fire from an enemy they never saw. 6 months later, Maria stood before a class of aspiring snipers at the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School in California. Her students included both male and female Marines, all eager to learn from the legendary SEAL sniper whose achievements had become standard study material in military academies. precision shooting at extreme range. Requires more than just good equipment, she told her students. Consistency, discipline, and mental toughness are more important than any rifle or scope. Master the fundamentals and distance becomes just another variable to calculate. The Rangers who had once mocked her capabilities were now using her techniques in their own training programs. Captain Mitchell had become one of her strongest advocates, frequently citing her performance when arguing for expanded roles for women in special operations. Maria's story had become more than just a tale of exceptional marksmanship. It represented the evolution of military culture and the recognition that capability, not gender, should determine a soldier's role in combat operations. Her 200-meter shot had shattered more than just enemy resistance. It had broken down barriers that had limited female soldiers for generations. The Barrett M82 rifle that had made her famous was now displayed in the Navy SEAL Museum, accompanied by a plaque describing her record-breaking achievements. Young women visiting the museum would stop to read about the sniper who had proven that excellence knows no gender, and some would be inspired to pursue military careers they had never previously considered possible.